Welcome to the Marnice Live Talk Show, a show where we can talk about life and social issues to have a revolution change in our society. So today we're going to be talking about Earth Day and why it should be every day. And so tonight I have some wonderful guests that I'm going to welcome in just a second. We have Andrew, Gregory, Brianna, Brandon, Sandy, Naraya, Baba Darrow, Amy, and Bonnie. So we're going to let them in. We're going to have this real conversation about why Earth Day is supposed to be every day and why they do the work that they do and why it's so important to talk about climate justice, environmental justice, food justice, energy justice, utility justice. So, hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. And to get things started, I'm going to get things going. So who do I want to start with and pick on first? So first of all, thank you all for being here and happy Earth Day to you all. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Brianna because, yes, I work so much with her and I know she always ready. So are we going to go around and introduce ourselves and tell everybody who we are, but in a concise way because this is an hour show, but I'm staying on all night for y'all. Just playing. But Brianna, tell us about why Earth Day should be an everyday thing, and tell us about what area of climate and environmental justice, whatever you're working on. Tell our viewers. Welcome.
Hello, everybody. Well, glad to be here. I am a daughter of Detroit, and I believe that Earth Day is important because, we look at the issues outside of ourselves, and the issues of Earth Day, it affects us. And when I say us, I'm from the east side of Detroit, and so I'm referring to people from spaces that I'm from, it's a thing. We don't see water as a human right, but it is. We deserve it. Energy is also a human right. So yeah, that's why Earth Day is important, because we need these things and we deserve them. We deserve to live in healthy spaces. So I'll stop there.
I like the way she said deserve. I'm gonna go ahead and pop over to Sister Naraya. How you doing? I think while she's... Nope, can't hear you. While we waiting to get her in the conversation, we're going to go to Sandy. Sandy, you ready for us?
Yes, I am ready. Can you repeat the question again?
Yeah, so why should Earth Day be every day? And tell us what area of the environmental movement are you working in? Who are you, Sandy?
Yeah. So hi, everyone. So I am the Port Commissioner for the Port of San Diego. And at the Port of San Diego, we are a public agency where we balance maritime, industrial use, and the environment. And for a long period of time, the port has played a role, either intentionally or unintentionally, has been impacting communities of color with its operations. And now the port is working really to take ownership and to reverse all the impacts that we have. And that's actually my kid in the background. I am a mother. So I just want to share that the port has been really working on these efforts. And so actually, can you pick on someone? I'll be right back.
I sure can. Yeah, go get your baby. Go get your baby. Bonnie, you ready? You ready? Jump in there.
Sure thing. Hi, everybody. Kind of new to this, but I'll just say, well, first of all, who am I? I'm a volunteer with a grassroots organization called Mothers Out Front. Mothers and grandmothers working for a livable climate for all children, climate justice. So why is this an everyday issue for us? I think because there's really no way to separate issues of environmental and climate justice from racial justice, economic justice. These issues are so interwoven together that they are part of all of the other issues that we work on. You know, we talk about in the EJ movement, we talk about sacrifice zones, areas that have been permanently impaired by environmental damage, economic disinvestment. It's like this idea that if we continue to burn fossil fuels, we have to find a place to put all our garbage, right? Our dump our waste, store our road salt. And where do these end up? They end up in poor neighborhoods, in communities of color. Race is actually the #1 indicator for the placement of toxic facilities in the US. So it affects all the other issues that we care about. We can't really separate it out. So I think of it as we are in a crisis moment in terms of our climate and in terms of our environment, and everything else comes into it too.
Thank you. All right, so we're gonna bring it back to Brandon. I'm gonna get you into the conversation.
Hey, peace, everybody. Hope y'all can hear me. Can y'all hear me?
Just a little bit faint, but we can hear you.
Okay, I'll try to speak up. So yeah, my name is Brandon. I'm currently based in Virginia. I'm a board member and founding member of Cooperation Jackson, which is down in Jackson, Mississippi. Yeah, for me, I think Earth Day is important every day because, you know, I think just dealing with when I think about Earth Day and I think about like Black people being on this earth, I think about you know, what happened this past week. I think about like Black lives and Black death happening on such a astronomical rate, and it being something that is like extrajudicial killings from the state. I see that as a ecological imbalance. You know, people talk about the polar bears, people talk about, you know, the bees, you know, and, you know, this manifestation of Black people being murdered is also an ecological imbalance. So when we're talking about climate justice, I feel like that includes Black people. And so that's why I think, you know, Black people should care about it. So yeah, I'll leave it there. Glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Marnice.
Thank you for being here, Brandon. It's so nice to see you. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and go to Gregory. And then Amy, you up next.
Okay, thank you, Marnice. Hello, everyone. Really glad to be here and participate in this show. And what an awesome question, because when I think about Earth, the first thing I think about is that one of your panelists, they had a globe in their hand when you were showing them. And I thought about how Earth is in our hands and how it provides for us and how it's been providing for us all the resources that were put here for all of mankind, only to find out that greed has destroyed it from the date of people's arrival on Earth, from the date that they landed at Plymouth Rock, when the Indians said, don't take no more from the land, only take that which you need. And again, you know, it has just destroyed us, destroyed people, and it has gone beyond destroying the earth like we see today, that it seems like it's all about destroying other ethnic groups. And, you know, I look at the earth and what it was here for, and the people who are on it. So it just kind of, you know, makes you want to wonder, what sort of people are we to do the things that we do to others? And it makes me feel like I'm just so disconnected from humanity when you have to endure the manifestation of what man does. So I'll stop right there before I just become disheartened.
Thank you, Brother Gregory. All right, Baba Darrow, you smiling. I hope you're not frozen. Can you? All right, Amy, we're going to come to you, and then we'll come back to Baba Darrow.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. Hey, Marnice. Hi, everyone. So nice to be here with everybody. I actually have a little different perspective in terms of that human beings, we have done a lot of damage to this planet, but it has to do with the amount of damage that we have had done to us. and the work that we do. And I belong to several different organizations, but the work of Sustaining All Life, United to End Racism, is about healing from the damage and the hurts that we have suffered as human beings so that we can actually think again and connect again and be the inherent, intelligent, flexible, loving creatures that we are when we're born as babies. And that we can actually heal from the racism and sexism and classism and, you know, all the different oppressions. And that's the only way we're going to actually bridge, make, you know, unite across all these divisions so that we can create the really united, massive front that we need to change things and transform this society.
Thank you, Amy. Naraya, you look like you're ready to go.
Yes, I was having issues with my laptop. I don't know what it had happened. So we're starting first. I just want to make sure before I move on to another.
Okay, so we're gonna come back, and because you're still breaking up a little bit, but Andrew, how you doing over there?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear an echo. So
Echo.
if we can all mute ourselves if we're not talking. All right.
Is that better? All right, cool. Well, thank you for having me, Marnise. And, you know, I just would add to I agree with a lot of what's already been said. I think that, you know, from my perspective, what Earth Day is about, for me, is really we have two paths because we're not separate from the environment in many, many ways. Humans are part of the environment. And the damage that we're doing to our planet, the 40% loss in insects, the 90% potential loss in the coral reefs, or 100%, that's not stuff that happens out in the environment. That's stuff that's going to come back and affect us on a socioeconomic level. And what we see with climate change, you know, I think we can all agree that this last year has revealed a lot of the cracks in the system that we have currently in terms of wealth inequality, in terms of policing, all of this stuff that's going on with the pandemic and healthcare. That's all going to be exacerbated by climate change. Climate change is poised to hit BIPOC communities the hardest in the United States and around the world. And when we talk about the path forward for saving the planet, we're really talking as well about creating an equitable society for future generations, because this crisis we're in, it's going to create more wealth inequality. It's going to create more problems. We can avoid that, or we can go down that path. There is no other option. So I think Earth Day is a time for us to reflect on that and really see that the scale of what needs to be done, but also how much of a better world we can make if we choose to acknowledge ourselves as part of the environment and see our futures tied up within it. So.
Thank you, Andrew, so much. Naraya, I wanted to come back to you, but can you? I think you're good now.
Yeah, can y'all hear me?
Yeah.
This is like, okay, yay. Just so I don't retread what other people have said, and if I'm repeating what someone said, I apologize. Like, for some reason my laptop keeps on freeing up in random spaces. But I just want, like, one of the reasons that we should talk about like Earth Day like every day is, like, you know, like, we are collateral damage to capitalism, and like for us to really like live our life, like, capitalism needs to be dismantled, because the reason why, you know, all of these things are happening, like wealth inequality, like the fact that people are living in frontline communities, sacrifice, is because of capitalism. I mean, like, one of the tenets of capitalism is like you own private property and you're able to extract from that property, and all of the things of where things are being. There is, you like, yes, there is, also the fact that because we live in a capitalist society. Like create like other things of value and other things that we should not make it profitable people to crap on other folks or like poison other folks, or you know, adding value of that of like racialized capitalism of like, you know, like Black people and BIPOC people like don't matter because like the continent of Africa is the largest continent. They're gonna have like these impacts of climate change, and you see it happening over and over again. And as time move on, to be wars like based on migration and climate refugees and like who has access to arable land and all this stuff. And so that's the future if we let like some of these things rooted in capitalism continue.
Thank you. So, Nararia, you were breaking up in the beginning, but the root of climate and environmental issues is capitalism. Most of us have been in the movement for quite a while to understand that is the root cause of all these issues. I wanted to talk a little bit more about, we are in I would say a quadruple pandemic, but I'm going to focus on the triple pandemic: racial, environmental, and of course COVID-19. How can we, like, we all come from different areas of the movement. How can we all have a real conversation about equity, liberation, climate reparation within federal policies on that level, but can't have a real conversation on the local level with the people who, quite honestly, are impacted by all these issues? And when I say can't have a real conversation, when you bring up the word capitalism, people get scared because we all participate in it in some way, some form, right? So I wanted to hear your thought about, you know, people who are suffering with these issues. How can we reach people on the ground, especially when we're bringing up capitalism and the root causes? Like, how do we shift people to like really talk about, okay, this is the root cause. You have to, you know, stop consuming so much. We have a big lifestyle change because we only have so many years. It's past so many years, you know, quite honestly, shit is hitting the fan now. So it's like, I mean, how can we be real? Like, I don't like the sense of urgency because I don't really operate like that. You know, that's rooted in white supremacy culture, but honestly, it is urgent, right? We have 3 pandemics going on right now, but how do you balance all of that with this conversation of capitalism? Anybody have any thoughts? Oh, you can come off mute.
I could start, and I just want to start off by saying, like, I didn't get in this environmental movement. It wasn't something that I was like, yo, let me get into, like, if I'm really into the environment. I started off as a social worker, and I went on an internship, and I needed a last minute internship, and I was at this organization, Michigan Welfare Rights Organization. I'm still a member today. And so I think that organization instilled values in me that I still live by today. So like whether it's on the federal level, on the local level, I think coming in with the values of changing the narratives and like shifting resources is always like, we got to continue that message. Our message can't change whether it's the federal level or the local level. There's no friends. I have values. That's all.
Any other thoughts on these conversations about capitalism and how, you know, the environmental movement, we should celebrate this every day. However, capitalism is the root cause. And you know, respectfully push back if you don't think that's an issue, because I have heard people in the environmental movement say they believe in capitalism.
Marnice,
So
I can say something, Marnice.
Sure.
I think that it's going to really require all of us to have big visions that are way outside of capitalism. And I think that's going to require all of us to really think together and put our minds together, and dream big, and also like be willing to give up the power and privilege that we have. So like, you know, white people who make up 9% of the world population and still consider themselves a majority somehow in the US, you know, in meetings and stuff, really need to like rethink that majority. You know, a wonderful woman named Barbara Love talks about this story where a white man came out of a meeting that was full of people of the global majority, people of color, and said, I was the only one in there who wasn't a majority. I mean, who wasn't a minority. Said, I was the only one in there who wasn't a minority. And it's like, yeah, rethink what you're doing. And people really need to think globally and outside of capitalism as much as possible, which means thinking about, you know, putting human beings and human lives before profit and before corporations. We have to take corporations out of the picture as beings who have rights. We have to, you know, and the people, we really, it's like, we have to learn to get to be able to work together. And that's why I think that the work we do in Sustaining a Life United to End Racism is so important, because it's really about connection and being able to work through the difficulties, work through the really big conflicts that can happen in trying to envision something bigger.
And Marnise, can I jump in on this?
Sure.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Amy that we need to start revisioning. And I want to share that before I got into the environmental movement, I was actually a union organizer, working to improve the lives of workers by getting them to form a union at their workplace. And as we know right now in the United States, the union density is at 10%. It's very low. So that means workers don't have the protections, workers don't have the power to negotiate those fair living wages. And one thing I want to note, because there was one point in the United States where 33% of the workforce was unionized. And when the decline of unions started happening, about when neoliberalism started, that was also the same time when we saw temperatures increase, when we saw global warming, right? And so there is a connection between the assault on workers, and the war and the increased temperature of our planet and the degradation of our planet. And so we have to understand that that they connect, and also talking about the solution and what the revisioning means. And so that means we need to keep organizing and keep connecting environmental justice activists with workers, working with labor unions as partners of revisioning of what a healthy living planet with worker justice. And so at the local level, that means advocating for policies that can help generate that shared wealth with everybody, because we are all contributing wealth, but we're just not receiving it back. And so that's why you see the huge discrepancy between those who have and those who have not. And so I really think that we need to recognize that connection, but also we need to go to the basics of organizing and mobilizing everyone so we can advocate for those particular policies.
Gergie, you look like you wanted to get in there next, but I wanted to add. So, Sandy, how would you do that when to go back to the original question around this whole triple pandemic? You see black people specifically being faced with police brutality. Then you have, of course, I'm in Michigan, where the numbers of COVID is just out there, right? And then you have all these other barriers of food insecurity, energy burning, like people can't really pay their electric bills, right? And those stimulus checks are not really enough. So like, how do you meet people where they are when you have all these other issues? Then we got on top of that environmental and climate justice, right? Issues.
Yeah, that's a great question, because what we do know is that people of color are disproportionately are dying of COVID and are continuously being infected, and also disproportionately do not have access to healthcare. Why? Because in the United States, our healthcare is tied to our employment. And we've seen how unemployment has increased because of this COVID-19 induced recession. So what that means is that when we develop economic policies, we have to be specific, saying that we are going to have programs that's going to hire Black workers. You need to be specific and say that, because for a long time, we don't have that specific language. So you're not necessarily targeting those that need the help. And so that is the difference between equality and equity. You're focusing on those who have not had the same access to resource or the same ability or same ability to move upwards. And so we really need to think of, okay, how are they impacted? Why do they don't have healthcare? How come they don't have generational wealth? It's all connected there. And so we have to be aggressive in these economic policies and call them out. And it's not going to be comfortable for those in power because they don't want to hear it. But the only way we can hear it is organize those to put people in power to make those decisions that understand that. And if those people are not in power yet, then we need to keep pushing and pushing until we get there. And we're starting to see that. We're starting to see the understanding of unions. I mean, the polling shows that more people are favorable to unions versus even 10 years ago. And so, so we need to keep talking about it, and we need to keep organizing around it.
Thank you. All right. I had a comment from the chat, and thanks everybody for watching the Marnise Live Talk Show. Shout out to Laura. Sarah Babadero is in the chat now. He was having some internet connection issues, but thank you for staying in the chat. So the question is from Sarah. Would love to hear everyone's thoughts on the PRO-ACT and Thrive agenda and what folks can do to push for these bills and protect workers and the planet. Great discussion, y'all. Thank you. Do anybody want to talk about any of these policies? Are there thoughts on it? I mean, are they realistic? I mean, are they going to help people who need it the most?
I didn't hear that, Marnise.
I guess I can.
The PRO-ACT and the Thrive agenda. I guess we can all talk about these whole federal agendas, you know, the Green New Deal, all of those. Who wanted to chime in there?
I mean,
on the Green New Deal.
Oh, would you like to go?
Can you hear me?
Gregory, and then
Yeah, I think the Green New Deal is very promising. However, I don't feel that the administration put enough funding in there for what needs to occur. And when we talk about addressing these problems, I'm going to say that I'm actually, have a concern for always wanting to talk about addressing the problems, and we don't get to the real root cause, just like I said, cause of the problem. We talk around the root cause of the problem, and a lot of it is about power. You heard that phrase, you say, well, power is, knowledge is power. But I kind of flip that and say, yeah, knowledge may be power, but the power that we really are referring to is destructive. And it always has been. Around the world, even serving in the military, I've participated in certain quote unquote campaigns, only to think that you were really trying to protect this nation and to find out you were not. You were going around exercising power and destroying other people's institution and other people's nations. So when you look at the Green New Deal, I look at it as something that I'm involved in and something that could really set a standard for the world to follow. But if it's going to be done based on power to do it, then it's going to be the wrong thing to do, and it's not going to be what it really was intended to do. And it's not going to serve the right purpose, because people are going to want to exercise their power and get the benefits, i.e. their wealth, out of the Green New Deal. When I heard the young lady talk about organizing, that organizing needs to really come from the bottom up, and it really needs to start with those who have been damaged the most. If you really want to find out if you're doing bottom up, top down organizing, then you would really go out there and get the people who have been damaged by what man has done. And if you really want to find out, are we doing the right thing? One of your best indicators will be the improvement of people's health and their mental status. Because people are born damaged from what this America has done. And that occurs not only in America, it occurs around the world. So I really want to see the Green New Deal for what it's worth. And I really want to see it work in this country, just like the Marshall Plan did when this country helped another country out of this economical breakdown.
Sounds like reparations.
Yeah.
Andrew, I want to pop to you. Did you have a thought on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Thrive agenda specifically is, you know, kind of a companion or a successor to the Green New Deal. And I think there's a lot of good in it. I really appreciate that so much time was taken to talk with unions and focus on union jobs. I mean, I think the PRO Act along the same lines. We have to have workers in any of these fights, and we have to have frontline communities in these fights. And Thrive uplifts indigenous rights, it uplifts investment in these communities that are on the fences of these polluting facilities, and says that a certain amount of investment needs to go into these communities. And I think that's absolutely where we need to be. Is it the right level? I mean, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. You know, Build Back Better is really a Band-Aid. The one that's currently out does add $2 trillion something, but you know, Thrive is several orders of magnitude larger, and I question if we really even need to go larger still, because the consequences of not getting this right are so high, and the stakes, you know, in terms of how it's tied up with wealth inequality and all of this is so high. I don't think we can afford to get this wrong, but I like the idea that these trillions of dollars would go into these communities. You know, there's a huge wealth gap. I know everybody in this panel knows, between white and black families in this country and Latino families. You know, I mean, it's just staggering, and there's a lot of opportunity to rebuild neighborhoods that have been disinvested, that have experienced hardline, and I think Thrive does that. So I'm excited about it, but like I said, I think even more, we got to move fast on this. We need significant reductions. So.
Thank you, Andrew. I'm gonna pop to Brandon, and I'll come back to you, Gregory.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I also think just in terms of like sort of anything coming out the U.S. on the federal sort of and even international, we should be wary of. I think there's an echo.
All right, hold on.
All right, I'm gonna try to speak again. Yeah, okay. So yeah, I think we should be wary of it because, you know, I feel like the U.S. could go around like with some green imperialism. You know, like the warships will be like eco-friendly, they'll be solar powered, you know, but they still will be conquering people, extracting resources, you know, and like I think that the question around capitalism, like infinite growth on a planet that has, it's a finite, so it's just like that doesn't make logical sense. And so it's like, how can we produce in a way that like we're producing what we need, rather than producing because we want to accumulate, you know, capital, you know, money, or like, you know, and I just think about it like if we're talking about people in communities, just how global this whole setup is, you know, like I spent some time in Chile last month, and I went to the Wamapu region, where the Mapuche community is. It's an indigenous community that hasn't been colonized in over 500 years. And down there's multinational corporations that are taking lithium, they're taking copper, they're taking the water, So for our cell phones, the electric cars, all of this green stuff, that we are, consuming, it's affecting that community. And, President Biden, one of his first executive orders was to give arms to the Chilean military, to the government, to fight those people who are fighting for their land. And, the rubber bullets that are being used in the uprisings in Chile and Santiago, they're in the midst of fighting for a new constitution. They're made in Pennsylvania, and so it's just like, we are connected to global dominance, right? And so like communities who, have these factories and have these jobs that are, gearing towards the war machine. I feel like it's a question of how do we share the connections, and do we have an alternative? Do we have an alternative that we can share and that we can present to folks? Because I feel like that's the thing, building relationships with people, because I don't think one conversation is going to actually change anyone, but, being out there, people seeing you, people seeing that you ride for them, I think over time, that's something that people can resonate with. They see who you are. And over time, that's how you can move people. But I don't think it happens overnight, but I do think that we have to make the connections globally, because that's what capitalism does. They work on a global international scale, and we need to as well. It's a people's movement.
Thank you, Brandon. It's like so multi-layered. We have our issues over here, and then we causing issues, not, us per se, but, causing issues everywhere else. So I'm going to go to Naraya. Welcome back.
Hey. Yeah. I don't know what was happening. My laptop is temperamental. So. But yeah, so unfortunately y'all can't see my face no more because I'm on my phone. But yeah, really wanted to chime in because I know at least Brianna, myself, and you, Marnice, we are all part of at least in Michigan, MAGIC, which is the Michigan Alliance for Justice and Climate, which is kind of oriented around the Thrive Agenda. And one of the things that I really like about that is it really talks about all of our issues, because we are not because of the nonprofit industrial complex, people have to be well, I just do racial justice and it's one thing. And it's just the idea of intersectionality, which is innately tied to liberation. It's you're all these things, and Thrive is just I would say a way to begin to have that particular conversation. But tying back to one of the earlier conversations we have is we have to be with all these things that are popping up, is we have to guard the idea of these false solutions that are basically rooted in capitalism, like carbon markets, which is trash. And just calling or clean energy, you're talking about incinerators and nuclear power and natural gas, which is trash. So we have to make sure that whatever solution is not rooted in capitalism is rooted in liberation of our community, and we're not, and these pathways that we're going is not poisoning another community somewhere else. Because especially the lithium ion batteries. I mean cobalt, 95% of the world's cobalt is from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And so it's are we gonna have our green futures based and destroying Black people? No. We need to draw that line in the sand. No, we're not poisoning nobody. We're not killing nobody else. We're not doing any of these extractive industries that is rooted in capitalism, and figuring out what our radical Black, brown, indigenous futures, Asian futures, what is that gonna look like, and dream that into existence.
Thank you. Brianna, did you want to add to that? You look like you're ready.
Yeah. I would echo all of that, and I will also say, why is the Green New Deal important? Because I like how Andrew put it out there, but I just want to say, the New Deal there was no policy that helped Black people. We were out of the New Deal. yo, if we don't get, that's the urgency of Earth Day. If we don't get involved now, like, we understand that for a long time, jobs, like if there's ever like green infrastructure, there's buildings. I know in Detroit that they're going to go out in the suburbs and bring a construction company in. They're going somewhere else. This is the opportunity for us to be at the table and to implement things that we know is going to help our communities and our own communities. The people in our community are capable, and they've been capable. That's why this is so important. I just want to add that we don't need to be out of the Green New Deal because we were already out of the New Deal, which is why we don't have housing now. Another story. I'll stop there.
All right. Gregory, come back into you. Oh, you're on mute.
I was thinking about what was being said about the union, and as I was reading the material for the Green New Deal, we had to do some writing that we wanted to add to the federal documentation as it related to living wage. And I remember I started talking about the union, and someone said, well, are you against the union? And I really want you to take to heart what I'm saying here. And I told them, no, I'm not against the union. Why would I be against someone who has what I want, who get what I want? And that is not only a prevailing wage, but the opportunity to make a living wage. I heard someone talk about a living wage, and actually, if you were to look at the living wage, that's not working because the minimum wage was actually established by Congress to address poverty and to give people an opportunity to make a living wage. But they came up with the phrase living wage because minimum wage is way below, poverty, and living wage is just a little bit above poverty. So in working on Thrive, that's one of the things that I really want to make sure that stays in balance with the unions and people having that opportunity to make a living wage, which Thrive does address that. But as Brianna said, this is a time for us to get on the forefront of things and be a part of something and not just wait for something to come to us. And that's all people, but there are also people out there, when I go back to that organizing, people are talking about how they want to help people, and it just becomes talk with no action, but it needs to become real because you're not gonna save this country, or you're not gonna even save Earth without everybody's involvement.
Yeah, I wanted to, Amy, did you have a comment before I bring Bonnie back in?
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Marnice. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, and thanks so much for bringing back organizing, because we all come to this work with different frameworks, different experiences. We all connected because, of course, I know most of you all, and we all have been in the same spaces together. But the thing is, everybody isn't, right? And so, Bonnie, I wanted to know, based on your organizing experience, and of course, anybody else can chime in, what have you found is the lack of motivation of why people won't get into the movement? Is it because is it lack of education is perceived a white thing? Like, what are you hearing so people can understand, look, this is not just, about me, or about this racial group, but this is about everybody. What are you finding that is the hardest thing to get into this movement? Because if we're going to talk about Earth Day every day, we got to have everybody here, and we're going to talk about policy on the federal level. Everybody is going to have to advance that policy. So I wanted to hear your thoughts. I think you're muted.
Thank you. Casting about a little bit for what to say here. I'm not that much of a proselytizer. I can say that I've been, out there hitting the streets and hearing from people, what their reluctance is.
Tell us more.
What's that?
Tell us more.
I mean, and part of it is my own, I know where I feel held back, right? Where I feel like I don't know, how much people are going to care, how much they're going to be interested in, this issue that I'm working on, if it's going to seem relevant to them. What I don't know what holds other people back. I know what holds me back in terms of, how much am I really putting this out there in terms of my climate activism? And the reality is, to the people that I interact with on a day-to-day basis, not that much. And, and some of it is my own perceptions of what people are interested in. So I don't know. I mean, that's not exactly, I just don't feel like I can necessarily say what is holding other people back, or, is it a lack of this, that, or the other thing. But I do think that there is a disconnect around the intersectionality. There is a sense that, there's, each person is working on whatever issue is important to them. And then there's the climate going on in the background. And this sense of the interconnectedness of these issues, I think, from the mainstream conversation is largely missing. So I think that's, a big piece of it. And yeah, I guess I would stop there.
All right. Well, Amy, did you have any thoughts about that or anything else?
Yeah. I really think that people's lives are dictated by the oppression, right? The oppressive society makes it living, basically surviving for most of the world is a big struggle. And there's very little attention and space left in our minds, in people's minds, for a bigger picture like the Earth, or, our future survival on this planet. Or even like thinking of transforming society is just huge. And I think, people feel powerless, and people feel small, and people feel insignificant. I know I do. I've struggled. I'm struggling with that all the time. But it's like, you have to know little by little that you are not insignificant, or that every little thing that you do could actually make, have a huge ripple effect. And people need to, like I'll keep saying I sound like a parrot, but it's like people need to heal from that place where they feel insignificant, discouraged, disheartened, like useless, we're helpless and hopeless, right? And those feelings are feelings that we can get rid of. So it's so important for us to remember that we are powerful as individuals. Like every individual decision we make, whether it's not to eat any more seafood or fish or meat, and that can make a big difference because it can bring down the industries that are, really killing the planet. There's to collectively working together. It's like both on an individual basis and as massive groups, we have a lot of power, and we can change the way, legislation and in the world. We just have to. We really have to believe that we can. We have to have hope, and we have to believe that we can do something, because I think that the biggest thing that's keeping us back is feeling powerless and that we can't do anything.
All right. Brianna.
Yeah, I also think like capitalism is a big barrier, but because people have so many things that they have to care about. Audre Lorde said, we don't live single issue lives, and we don't. I got into this movement, and I didn't know what people were talking about. I think there's big language barriers. There's very big language barriers. People can say things very simple. And the last point that I'll make is they do care. They are in the movement. They're struggling, trying to keep their lights and gas on. They're trying to keep their water on. They're trying to raise kids and be decent humans. So they're already doing it. I think we just don't think about it like that. And the language is not there. We have to change our language and shift the narrative. Because if we don't, we'll be still here years down the line having the same conversation about what we could do. So we have to see the gifts in ourselves.
Thank you. Naraya, bring you back in before we go to.
Wait, I mean, like a lot of this stuff is like really like rooted in white supremacy, and so we have to kind of colonize it.
We can't hear you. You said.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. I was gonna say a lot of this stuff is like rooted in white supremacy because like the idea of like putting labels on stuff, like people are out here like living their life, you know. And like I go door to door, look, well, I haven't since COVID, but I've gone door to door like in the past, and like people are like living their life. And you know, like, but unfortunately, you know, like you see like the, I hate to say like the flashiness of like when you like, it's basically a difference between a fast death and a slow death. So like you have people, you know, going and mobilizing and marching in the street, you know, for like victims of police brutality, like people getting murdered by the police. But unfortunately, like, you know, like around climate change and environmental justice stuff, like that's a slow death because like people don't know that, you know, you're going to be drinking this water and 30 years later, you're going to die from cancer, or you living next to this incinerator in about 15 years, you know, like something else is going to happen because like the most important number attached to your day is not your social security number, it's not your credit score, it's your zip code. And that determines like your health outcomes, that determines like your educational attainment, like what you're exposed to as far as toxins. And I think like as far as like what Brianna says, like reshifting and reframing some of this stuff, because people are out here and they care, and just like recognizing that because of like how we've been oriented in this society, like you have to fix a label and like create some jargon to justify what people are already doing. So people are already like people been caring about the environment, you know, people of color been caring about the environment. They've been out there gardening, take care of like everything, like having like sustainable practices. Like that's already been happening. But like reorienting people and rooting them like in that power that they already have, so we can shift that power to change like some of these policies that are based on capitalism and extraction.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the stuff that we already been doing, because people tend to forget that they have been a part of this all along. Or, you know, energy conservation. I remember when I first heard of it, I'm like, wait a minute, my mom was just telling me to turn off the lights or you don't pay anything on this energy bill. What you doing? You know what I'm saying? So I wanted to come back for our final question. Like, you know, this is good. This is a conversation starting. Of course, you know, these things need to keep happening so we can move people into action in whatever areas we're showing up in, right? So what are some action steps we can take or provide people to make Earth Day every day, or make this more noticeable that like we're talking about it every day? It's like, hey, we're doing the basic stuff, but also we are talking about these policies on a local and state level. So I wanted to start with Andrew. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry. I think I was muted on your end. So, but anyway, yeah, no, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about that. In my personal opinion, I think localism needs to be a way more important part of our climate activism. I think that the types of activism that have been done have been, especially by this nonprofit industrial complex, have been at the federal and state level. And we have this problem where, you know, power switches and power is very marginal. Like we have Joe Manchin right now, right? And he's blocking everything we do. We want to pass the Thrive agenda. Well, we got to get it through Joe Manchin. And it's like this is the first time in a long time we even had unified government at the federal level, and we can't even really do that much with it. And so I think we really need to return to this idea of where is the power in our communities. You know, like we can do so much at the city council level if we assemble the movement to do it and we articulate our demands better. I was part of, Marnise, I know you've been involved too, this Turn Oakland County Green campaign. And in less than a year, you know, working together, we were able to get over $750,000 allocated to sustainability planning with $2 million more in the budget. And that was something they weren't even thinking about before. And it's like, we put pressure on them. We told them we weren't going to just let them do the token we're green, we'll create a loan fund thing and walk away and say it was done. And we made them create a sustainability office. We made them create a plan. And, that was real citizen action. But I think a lot more needs to be done. And DTE and consumers, they can play big in the state, but they can't play in every community. If you've got city council people, especially in these smaller cities, 30 people are showing up saying, we need to be doing this, we need to be doing this. That's a lot of power, and that's a place that utilities can't play as good with the people power, but they can lock our state, and they have, and we need to really think about how we develop the solutions and look for new opportunities, because there are a lot of these planning commission meetings and local things that the people that are against us are out there, and they're involved, but nobody is there to push back, and we need to be in those halls because that's power that we're leaving on the table. So if there was one thing I would say is a good action step, it's get involved in that stuff because it's really important.
Thank you, Andrew. And for all our viewers, Andrew is in Michigan. So when he say Oakland County, that's the county that we reside in. And I like the fact that you need to get into these conversations with the utilities because they dictate our utility costs, and also, these dirty pipelines and everything else, polluting facilities that are in our community. So I'm going to switch to Brandon. What are some action steps that communities can take to just further advance whatever we're working on, and just to get in the movement more in the advocacy part? Because I think everybody needs to switch careers and become an activist at this point. That's just my opinion. Oh, hold on. I got to unmute you. I'm sorry. I did that.
No worries. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, so something that I was doing in Virginia, I've been doing in Virginia since I've been back home, has been organizing with my family and like my close friends. And one thing that I've noticed is that like, and even when I was in Jackson, it's just like Black people's like connection to the land, like there's a disconnect, because of enslavement, like our access to water and like knowing how to swim, to like wildlife, to like being comfortable sleeping outside, like all of these different kinds of things, like I feel like is a barrier to us even like caring about nature because we're disconnected from it. And so something that we've been doing, like I made it's like an arts collective, but we've been doing like environmental stuff. It's been a whole crew of Black folks going out kayaking, we go on hikes together. We go to the beach together. And these are things that like, I feel like it's moving us outside of our comfort zones. I'm the only one in my crew that has camped outside. And that's not an anomaly. There's a lot of Black people who haven't experienced nature, and so I feel like it's a thing of us reconnecting ourselves and unlearning and decolonizing in a way, and learning our love, for nature again, because I feel like that will give us, I think, more reverence and more kind of understanding and to like why we need to fight for this place. So I'll leave it there. Thank you, Marnice. I appreciate this conversation.
I'm so happy you lifted that up because I think we really definitely need to change the narrative, or people just need to see Black people out in nature. I remember one of my homegirls told me that I was a Black white girl because I like kayaking, rowing, and I took my Girl Scout troop, majority Black and brown Girl Scout troop, camping. And I'm looking like, we do this stuff, right?
That's just the racism, though, Marnice, that they called you a Black white girl, because that should be a birthright for every human being, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Racism that it's being called. And it's internalized racism as well.
Exactly. Internalized. Yes. And so I'm glad you lifted that up. And there's a lot of groups out here in the Detroit area, Afro Outdoor. There's a Black Outdoor Coalition here that's doing a lot of outdoor activities. So get outside. All right. So I'm going to go to Gregory. Yes, Brother Gregory. Okay. I think I may have to unmute you. I'm sorry. I'm just getting a lot of feedback. No, it's not me, Gregory. I think you got to unmute yourself. Well, while we waiting on Gregory, I will come to Bonnie. What are some actions that we can offer people who are listening in to embrace Earth Day as every day? And if they can just, start.
Yeah, I mean, I love what you said about you think everybody needs to become an activist. And I think the thing is we live in this highly individualistic society, right? And we're always told, this action that you do and that action that you do can make a difference. And there's some truth to that, but it's so much like spitting into the wind. And I think it's really, the reality is that, collective organized action is really what's going to make change. And so one thing that we can do, I think, is just to bring the environment into the other conversations that people are having in their advocacy or whatever activism they are doing. So if you're advocating for affordable housing, then make sure that you're also requiring that there's energy efficiency there, there's clean renewable energy in that housing, or heat islands and shade trees in your neighborhood, or food justice project that includes urban farming, creates opportunities for youth, things that bring people together where that people can connect to, which also creates locally grown, accessible food, and addresses multiple issues. So I keep coming back to that intersectionality is where people are already engaged and caring, bringing the environment into those same conversations.
Right, because we don't live just one single lives, as Brianna lifted up, and then also we this is also a part of the HIMES principle for democratic organizing. We work in solidarity and mutuality, right? We support other movements. We have to understand environmental justice impact our health, our food. And so I want to come back to Sandy. How's it going over there?
Good. Yeah, I think for the action steps, I totally agree with Andrew about being really focused on the local level, because it is true, there is power at the local level, and it's usually not tracked because pretty much everything that's focused on is state, federal, right? Because that gets all the mainstream media attention. It's more popular, but really our lives are being impacted not just by state, federal policy, but local policy. And so at the local level, you can advocate for policies that can help achieve racial justice, environmental justice, economic justice, and think outside the box. And so I think this is a real opportunity to show how we can keep organizing and organizing your neighbors. Organize your neighbors to go to the city council meeting, track your city and see, is your city achieving climate justice? Does your city have a climate action, an aggressive climate action plan? What's the metrics that your city is setting to achieve that? Does your city have an environmental and racial justice element in their climate action plan? Why or why not? Is it good enough? And so have those conversations there and meet with your council members. And that's usually what influences state policy. There's been local city policies that became state law. So for example, in California, in my city, in the city of Nashville City, we were the first city in the state of California to include a healthy and environmental justice element in our general plan. And so we were the first city in the progressive state of California. And so a few years after our city did that, a small city, by the way, we're a city of 60,000 people compared to the city of San Diego being one of the largest cities in the country. But our city was the first one to do it. And so now there's state law in California that requires all local and county governments to include a healthy and environmental justice element. So tracking it. And so it all starts locally. So test your skills. Let's see if you can get your neighbors to come to a city council meeting, and get the precinct next to your precinct to a city council meeting, and grow your power there, because that's how you're going to make change and inspire the future. Getting the future starts today.
Thank you, Sandy, and so thanks so much for coming on again. And I'll see you soon. I'm gonna go back to Gregory. You ready?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
Again, thank you on that. I love what the gentleman said about, getting outside of your own environment and taking in nature, knowing that, we came from that particular environment, but then we were contained. Like you said, going swimming. We didn't have pools in our neighborhood, and rarely could get to the beach to enjoy, the water, and the water being destroyed. But if we're going to really, again, address this even as a local level and work up to the federal level, we are, again, gonna have to go and do that bottom up, organizing. And I try to do that with not only how would I say, getting you involved, but first giving you the knowledge that you need. And I call it, I refer to it, I know people heard of it, power building. I really can't empower you. I don't have the power to give you, but I do have a bit of knowledge that I could share with you to encourage you to get involved and build you from that way, to know that to teach you that you can come to recognize that there are things that you can do at the local level and work your way up to the federal level. But at the local level, like you said, going to the city council meeting and letting them know that you want to change in, your housing, your housing estates. You want to make sure that your water is taken care of. And every time the man comes out and you see him with the little pipe checking the water, you might want to go out there and find out what they're doing. Are they lowering your pressure or increasing your pressure? Here we are, we're talking about Thrive, and Thrive is going to be addressing broadband. And to think about, the technology came from this country, and we're still addressing broadband, and we have given it to people around the world. So I'm going to close on this. We must recognize that we live in a system of equality. We must recognize and address where it's coming from, and addressing the Green New Deal and Thrive. We need to make sure that those biases are set aside and that we are putting them on the front line, saying no more, no more, no more. We want social equality. We want social equity. We want an environmental justice, and we want liberation. Thank you.
Thank you. Liberation. Yes. All right. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and go to Amy. Did you go? Did you give us some actions?
No, I'd love to. I think that I love listening to everybody, and everybody has so many important things and great things to say. I'm just going to go back to one step to people who are really, scared of taking action or don't know what to do. And I just want to really promote baby steps and go, whatever you do, it's like doing something is better than nothing. And joining an organization, giving money to organizations, where BIPOC people are centered, and building and starting to build alliances eventually will happen. But it starts with a baby step of even just talking to people, making friends with people who you might be afraid to make a connection with. And people, underestimate the power of friendship. I think that when you make connections with people and make friends, everybody grows, right? And your network grows, and your nets grow, your interrelations and your interconnection together grows, and you can envision so much more when you're connected to people all over. And that's why I love to talk about the global network. And I think Brandon was talking about really thinking globally, and join international organizations, organizations that are thinking about reparations to the countries that have been colonized and genocided, so those, it's and you can't talk people into doing anything, but I really think you can listen them into doing anything. So listen to people and their objections, or why they're so discouraged, or why they can't do anything, and really push on the asking questions and then listening, because once they hear themselves say some reasons why they cannot do what they think they cannot do, it's well, boy, that sounds kind of silly, or that sounds kind of lame, or that, it's once it's out of their heads and out, it can make a big difference. So yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. And this was great.
I like the fact that the listening part, because I know when we get in organizations, whether we're employed or whether we are just volunteers, we advance their agenda and forget about the transformational part of why we're doing this work, right? People's lives are at stake. And, I like the fact that Andrew lifted up the whole nonprofit industrial complex, and how their agendas are not as really equitable as they're trying to make it seem. And I just, caution people, I know we want to make sure that people get involved with the organization and all that, because that's where a lot of the power and the things are advancing in a lot of these different organizations. I think sometimes, to be quite honest, it can be very discouraging for new people, because there's the language or the technical jargon barriers. There's so many intra-conflicts, right, in these different movements. And sometimes, this is a talk show. We have to be honest that this can be very discouraging for the movement, right? And I understand movements are made up of people. People have their own agendas. They come to the table for different reasons. But I wouldn't be an organizer. I wouldn't be a person if I wasn't honest and told the viewers, like, look, yeah, go get involved with the organization. There are some really good people out here doing some good work, but you have to make sure that you do your research and if they're rooted in, advancing our communities, but also embodying the EJ principles, the HIMAS principles, and just not talking about it. So I just want to throw that out there. So I'm gonna go to Brianna.
Hey, so well, I'll just say to get involved, start telling your story. Talk to your neighbors. I don't think people talk to each other. Start there. It's important to tell your story. I don't think that I didn't know how important the movement was until I started talking to my community. And I came to the realization that my parents died. They died deaths connected to the environment. I didn't know that. I had to talk to my neighbors. So tell your story. Talk about, like, hey, this person, they live close to this plant, right? That's a story. Tell a story about not having lights and gas on. Like, that's a thing. Like, nobody should live without utilities. Nobody should live without it. You should talk about it. Hey, capitalism has this thinking that, hey, you're poor, it's your fault that your lights are off. You don't have water because you ain't pay your bill. You wanted to pay for cable, and you don't have it. You don't have cable. You can't keep that on. That's not your fault. And that's how you get involved. Talk to each other. Tell your story.
Thank you, Brianna. Naraya, you want to bring us home?
Sure. I would absolutely be remiss, and my staff would be down to the ground. I did not. Can y'all hear me? Okay. No? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I think you just got it.
Okay, I think maybe my phone was it was covered up. But my staff will beat me down to the ground if I did not talk about how Sunday, I live in Flint, Michigan, and Sunday is the 7-year anniversary of the switch to the Flint River. And I work for a water justice organization called Flint Rising. And I would say, if you are able, today, don't drink bottled water. Stop buying it. Stop feeding into this industry that commodifies water. Water is life. And then you're also enriching the fossil fuel industry by the plastics that it's in. But, I live in Flint and we're still reliant on bottled water because our water flowing out of our tap is poison. So I will also say, as far as kind of a national call, there are a couple of listening sessions coming up by US EPA around the lead and copper rule revisions, and weigh in on that stuff, because this is for one thing, which is extremely difficult because you have industries and all this stuff. They pay people to be at meetings, as a community person, you're bringing your kids, you're trying to do all this other stuff to kind of move around, and that shit is not, oh, sorry. I'm sorry for cussing. I tried to Like knowing that that shit isn't right and is not fair. But it's like, but your voice is needed and important to like weigh out on like these companies. They got football fields worth of staff to come in and try to take over stuff. But it's like, you know, like consumers' energy, like they can like throw money into an election, but they can't go out and actually vote. So like, and also I would just say like being in people's faces, like your elected officials, like be in their face all the damn time, you know, like find out where they live, go over their house, find them at the grocery store, you know, like find where they playing basketball, you know, like, because you can like run up on them outside of meetings. Like if they go to a corner store, go there, like just follow them around and stalk the hell out of them until, until like, and then tell your story like every single time, like, yeah, it's me again. My water's still not safe. What you doing about it? You know, like you don't have to feel like you're an expert at all this stuff, because like if you stand in your power and telling your story, like that's good enough.
Right. Hey, Nora, I have a question from the chat. What type of water should we drink instead of bottled water? Tap water.
Yeah, like, and that's why the caveat is if you're able, because you have to make sure, first of all, that your water is tested and that it is safe to drink. Because there's like a whole, like another, like, you know, different types of education around, like, you know, the point of use filters, like you can't run hot water through those filters. If you have like bacteria stuff, like the bacteria, like the filter does not filter out bacteria, so you have to boil that water. So a lot of the stuff is like the taste. So like a point of use filter will take care of that. But if you have like other issues, like with your water, you know, like especially like municipal water, like there's a consumer confidence report that like is mailed to you every year that you can look at. If you're on well water, like unfortunately, like there are no regulations on that, so you don't know like what you're exposed to. So you have to try to like get that tested as well.
All right. So Brianna, Amy, Bonnie, Gregory, Sandy, Naraya, Andrew, Brandon, thanks so much for coming on to the Marnie's Live Talk Show. I appreciate all the work that you have done. I have learned a lot from each one of you. I'm very observant and I'm a student of learning. So it's always great to be in contact with people who are just really awesome and doing the work, because it's really hard. And there's a lot of us, you know, who are very dedicated. So I appreciate you all coming on to my talk show. And so I encourage you all, of course, you can always come back, you know, Thursdays night at 9 p.m. And of course, thank you so much, Andrew and Sandy, for coming back on to the show. And so as we leave off, I would like to say, you guys all be safe. The rates are high here in Michigan with COVID. You guys continue to take care of yourself, because activism is hard. And some days I'll just be like, I don't even, what? I mean, and I wear many hats. So it's like, it's mentally taxing. So I encourage everybody to take care of yourself, right? And find something that you all enjoy in this work. And so I'm going to close it. You guys be safe. Take care of yourself, take care of your family. And honestly, we got some good action items, right? And so the first thing I am definitely going to encourage everybody is to get into nature. Because we have one planet, one Mother Earth, and, you know, we need to just get out there and be happy. So, and stay prayed up if you pray, or whoever you pray to, universe, whoever you pray to, just because times are really hard right now and very stressful. And so I love you all and happy birthday. Gregory, it's your birthday? Did you say? Happy birthday, Gregory. Wow. Well, happy birthday. Oh my goodness, happy birthday.
We get to sing to him.
Yep. 1, 2, 3. Happy
Happy birthday to you. And many more.
That was awesome, y'all. All right. Well, everybody have a wonderful night. And I will say goodbye.